Hello everyone, good morning. I'm Satya Shaukat from University of Education. I welcome to all of you in the webinar series, and particularly for this episode that is based on education policy and the implementation of single national curriculum with a slogan of one nation and one curriculum. I hope you will respect the protocols of the webinar and please mute your mic and you can use the chat box for the questions and the comments. I'm delighted to introduce with you Dr. Nadia Siddiqui. A very warm welcome once again, Dr. Nadia, for joining us this session. And Dr. Nadia is working as associate professor in education from Durham University. Mike, and you can use the chat box for the Dr. questions. Nadia is going to talk on a single national curriculum and its implementation. And are we ready for this step? So I warmly welcome to Dr. Nadia, and let's begin this session formally. And over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sadia, for sharing. So today's session is basically just sharing the ideas about single national curriculum, what it means in context of Pakistan, a little bit of examples that we can share from other countries in terms of their context and when they started implementing single national curriculum in their countries and what it means to those countries and in that time period when they implemented it. Little bit I will talk about the evidence on existing challenges in Pakistan and trying to make a connection between what are our problems and what is it, how it is linked with the need or lack of need for single national curriculum. So before I move forward a little bit, I will give a little bit of an introduction of what a curriculum is. So I am not an expert on curriculum. So people who work, it is a whole area, it's a whole field in education that basically is a scientific knowledge, and it is scientific process to develop a curriculum for a phase of education or for the entire school or for the entire nation. So it's a scientific process, and basically it is measured against children's capability, children's skills, the context of the country or the context of the school, the need of the population, and all these things are taken into account when the curriculum is developed. And it's a process that needs high level of expertise on and knowledge in the area where it is meant to be implemented. So curriculum is a broad perspective. It's a broad objective of what you want children to learn from education. So basically, what is the purpose of education for a group, for a population, or for the entire country? So that's very clear. What are the objectives? And the second is how you are going to achieve those objectives is also a part of curriculum. For example, what kind of assessments you will need to measure children's daily learning process, what kind of syllabus you will implement to achieve those objectives in education. So, for example, if the objective is to implement policy such as a language medium of instruction is one, just as Urdu or Arabic, then it means that children will learn in that. The medium of instruction means teacher will deliver knowledge in that particular language. And how will you measure it in terms of students gaining skills, or how much children learn based on that medium of instruction? So what kind of at what stage that assessment will be taken place, who will develop that assessment, and how that assessment will impact on children's overall education. Will it be a yearly education assessment process, or it will be just phase wise education process? For example, after 5 year or a primary, end of primary, there will be a national national assessment day, and all children will take the test, English, literacy, maths, whatever, and then based on that we will consider whether children should go into the next phase of education or not. If they can't go, what will happen with them, and things like that. So that's what curriculum does, basically shaping the population in which that national curriculum can be implemented. So the objectives in could be different. So depending what kind of citizenship you want from children, what kind of citizenship you want from your society, or what you see society as. So in context of developed countries, they see citizens as responsible people. So educating people, or educating young people or children to a point where they become independent decision maker. So each phase of education gives them a chance to think about self, be critical about their learning process, be critical about their surroundings, be able to make independent decisions, not about them but themselves, but also how they, knowing that how their decisions will have an impact on their surroundings, on their community, and how each knowledge process will shape them as human beings. Okay, that's what the Western society see them, development of an individual who is an independent person, and he can survive or she can survive on their own, and make decision about themselves. However, in other countries, the less developed countries, the idea of who you are is very much linked with where geographically you are living, what political powers want the children or society to be like in the next 10 years, and a huge influence of nationality, religion, and other cultural influences. So Western societies to some extent have disconnected the influence of these bigger, I would say, ideological differences having its impact on education. Why they have done that? There is a historical literature written on it. There are historical events that have taken place, and they have found that having that ideological influence on the education system more than what they think that it should be. No, it's not that it is completely lack of ideology. It is not completely a lack of ideology, but still it is less so influenced as in case of Pakistan or India or Bangladesh or other Middle Eastern countries. So what ideology they believe in is not as strongly influenced in their curriculum, such as in America. America is a Christian nation, but they have nation, it doesn't mean that their constitution or their the way they teach children is all based on Christianity, or what they think that each year children should learn what Bible says. So they have made education independent of religious ideology. So however, it's very different from what happens in Pakistan. So we see child growing up as Muslim, we see child growing up as Pakistani. So these, and we consider that all Pakistanis are Muslims. So that kind of ideology has a great influence on what our children are, what our children become, and how they see the world. So school is a small society, and they think that this is the whole society, and we will outside the world it's like that. However, it's not like that. So what school can bring in, what school can shape human beings into, has a great influence, and basically it is around curriculum. So whether we had single national curriculum before or not, our ideological perspectives had a huge influence in what we teach in schools. Then comes what challenges nations had, and how over a period of time they have influenced education depending on their experiences, depending on the knowledge they had about their societies. So a lot of research based curriculum they have developed, and not to serve the whole entire nation, or not to serve the political agenda, or not to serve an ideology, but to serve their country and their people who live, and the children who live in that country. So the idea of citizenship, like who is an American or who is Irish or who is German, that has gone, that is less influenced in the way they approach education. Or even if it is there, it is in a very subtle way. So in context of the challenges I was talking about, that has an important, that should be considered. And without considering the problems in our countries, the lack of cohesion within the ideologies of our countries, lack of understanding of what people need in terms of language, in terms of their cultural values. These things make a huge difference, and single national curriculum is a blanket approach. So when I say blanket approach, means once the idea is once it's given to the education authority in all the provinces, they will implement it as it says. So they can choose their syllabus, they can train their teachers as they want, they can shape school as they want, but what the end product will be is this, what the single national curriculum says. So it's a blanket approach. In some countries this blanket approach works because there are less differences in terms. Some first difference is the language, for example. So let's say England, take an example of England, Northern Ireland, Scotland. So England and UK, basically United Kingdom, and it's like it has different countries: Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales. These are three countries in United Kingdom. So what they do is they have, like us, we have provincial government, and they are responsible for the delivery of education. They get entire budget and they do whatever they want with education. So they do so the same way. So what their curriculum is, what England curriculum is different from Ireland, Northern Ireland curriculum, what or Scottish curriculum. However, because these countries have common language such as English, so but they do have, like, in if you go in the south of United Kingdom, which is Wales, they have Welsh as a language, and children learn Welsh as as a language, as their, as I would expect that children in Punjab should be learning Punjabi, or children in Sindh should learn Sindhi, or in Balochistan they should learn Balochi, or at least given a chance that parents can choose their medium of instruction as taught in school. So, but English is the main language, and there are no differences as in terms of if a person doesn't know English, there are very low number of cases where people wouldn't understand that English as a language. So there are, that kind of thing is that if they have chosen a medium of instruction, they have chosen it looking at the geography, looking at the population and the need for it, and they can make a choice that a school can be a Welsh medium school, but they will teach English, and a large population will have English as their first language, because it's what the country is like. So it's in that case it works. In context of Pakistan, that has made controversial, that has been issue, there has been an issue with language, Urdu medium, English medium language, and somehow it is linked with public private school, but our underlying issues are just more than English medium and Urdu medium. We have other languages, and not having an opportunity in the school system for knowing about other local languages in Pakistan is a great deficit, while curriculum, the single national curriculum, doesn't recognize that, and doesn't have any agenda to improve that knowledge. For example, schools in Punjab, how many times you have been given an option to know Pashto. Pashto is a language spoken everywhere in Pakistan. Wherever Pashto speaking population is, it's something we should learn Pashto. We should learn Balochi. We should have that option in school where other languages in Pakistan should be available, and should have parents should choose what they want other than English and Urdu. Children can learn that language, because that has an influence on national cohesion. It will make us understand what the Pashtun culture is. It will make things less tensed between the province and the ethnic problems we have. So a little bit, I would like to say that there are challenges which are perhaps not linked with language, but they are linked with socioeconomic class, and how over a period of time we see that this specific data, I will talk a little bit about data today as well, tells us about the characteristics over a period of last few years, so 2013, 2016. I have done some little bit of analysis based on ASER data, and this is what it says, that nothing big has changed in the last few years. So these each bar, it tells how many boys and girls have gone into school, and you can see that the height of these bars haven't changed. So more or less, more boys than girls have gone to school, and we haven't jumped drastically to make it equal at all level. Enrollment rate is also almost the height of all the four bars, 2013, 2014, 15 and 16 is the same. And those who are not enrolled means a large majority of children in this survey study is it shows that a large majority are enrolled, but still not enrollment rate or dropped out rate is pretty much high. And government schools have a little bit, there is a dip in 2014, and then it goes back in 15, 16. And I think if I get this data for 17, 18, 19, 20, it will show slight increase in the government, but not drastic that it is changing. Private school, again, we will say some being more popular in 14, and nothing big has changed. Madrasa education stagnant over the last these years. Nothing, that means it's not that having madrasa has brought more children in school or in education. It hasn't changed in over the period of time. In terms of socioeconomic status, we say having electricity hasn't changed. It tells what kind of population is going to school or not going to school, because that's an indicator of socioeconomic wealth in that way. So, and let's go and pass and fail, not really making any difference. I haven't done a recent analysis, but I'm pretty much sure that it hasn't changed over a period of time. People still living in conditions such as poverty, like mud house. Living in mud house is a condition of poverty, and a small majority has lived in Pakka house, and you can see there aren't many changes. So socioeconomic changes, the cycle of our country reflects on the cycle of education. So nothing, there is no prosperous time period that we have seen. It's pretty much stagnant, or at least it's or it goes down. So that has a strong impact on how education is happening. So this basically survey collects its children from age 3 till 16 years of age, and each year you can see means nothing big has happened, but for analysis we will standardize the age. So because children in 3 years of age would be different, their approach to school or their parental approach to school might be different from what happens in children when they are at the end of secondary school. So a lot of children might drop out, they will stop going to school, and that's very common in Pakistan. And so, for the sake of analysis, I have just standardized it and only chosen one age group, which is 8-year-old. 8-year-old means they are in the primary school, and you can see that the further analysis will also tell us whether specifically at that age in primary school are there any big changes in terms of academic proficiency, or in terms of in terms of their academic proficiency or not. So I did this analysis just for 8 years old, and I think nothing pass and fail remains. More are failing in 2016 for some reason, but nothing big has, because maybe more children are coming into education, or possibly the survey captured the data in those cities or in those households where the socioeconomic status is better. It doesn't, it's not a national level data, it's a sample. So having a reliance on a sample for the purpose of research makes sense. It's good. Sampling is a very good research method. But in education, I would highly recommend to the national authorities or national education system in Pakistan to record student level data, not when they enter in education, because this will not tell us anything. It will just tell us about what's happening with children who come to school or then they drop out. We don't need that. We need data when children are born. So birth registration is what we need. So the day a child is born, their birth should be registered, so that we know all across the country, or at least maybe in Punjab, which is a bigger province, or Sindh maybe, we need that statistics. How many children are born each day, and what at when, and track over the period of time when they are at the age of going to school. Children who might die in that time period, who might have lots of disabilities due not to reach to school. So without that knowledge, we cannot make any improvement in education system. Without data, we cannot tell how many children need to go to school. So where does this 23 million dropout or children not going to school or not enrolled in school comes from? I cannot get that statistic. It's an estimated statistic by agencies who conduct surveys in Pakistan, or work that is done by UNICEF. So these are, I personally feel they are estimated figures. Estimated figures are based on, okay, they have done a survey of a large part of Pakistan, and they have said, okay, 100 villages or 100 towns have this level of children not enrolled in school or dropped out in school. So they estimated the same for the other 100 towns. So this is because when I want to get that data, where it is available, I can't get it. And there is likely a chance that it is wrong. There are more than those 23 million children who are not going to. There could be less than those who are 23 million who are going to school, but they have not been recorded. So I don't know where this figure is. If somebody of you know where it comes from or where it exists, please share it with me. And we need data from the point when children are born, and to be recorded at least when they are at the age of going to school, because without that information we cannot make fair judgment, fair decision. Who needs to go to school, who needs to be in the school? For the protection of child, for the safety of child, we need information who is born, and when they are at the age 3 years old, are they going to school or not? That simple data, it needs to be linked with hospital records, or midwives, or health ladies, health workers, how they report that needs to be strategically implemented. It needs to be brought in in our education, link it with education system so that people can make decision, or at least we know which parents are not sending their children to school. This is not a law to send children to school in our, so we can't force parents to send their children, but at least we should have the right to know that which parents are withholding their children from entering into education system, and what we can do with them. How can we convince them? What kind of safety we can provide? What kind of provisions education? So this is what national curriculum should do, bringing children on in the school first, based on the proper knowledge, concrete hard evidence that who are of the age to go to school and why they are not going to school. So this current government had three basic promises. The first promise was out of school children should be in school. So that was the first promise. Second was it's the medium of instruction should be Urdu rather than English. And then the third promise was single national curriculum. So these single national curriculum. So which one of these three are easy to implement? That doesn't cost teacher training, I think. That doesn't cost any money. It's just changing paperwork. It's something that making things like implementing national curriculum. How would they say we have implemented? They might say, oh, we sent the national curriculum documents to all the school and we provided syllabus attached to it, and free books or free uniform is part of that. Other than that, you can't, or we changed a little bit of our assessment strategy. This is not helpful. This doesn't change the challenges. Children who are not going to school will remain out of school, whether we implement a single national curriculum or we have a private system following their own curriculum and a state system following their own curriculum. So in this slide, we can say that academic proficiency of 5 to 16, and then on the second one is only 8 years old. And we can say children are pretty much, there's the same pattern with secondary school children and children in primary school. And here comes the problem, who is going to school and who is not going to school, which tells us a big children who are achieving literacy, numeracy, and not. And it's very clear that not enrolled children will not learn anything because they will not be able to do a simple test of literacy, numeracy, reading, and the comprehension wouldn't be the same. And this is very much clear, and going to madrasa is perhaps not helpful. So what this single national curriculum do with madrasa knowledge? How would they implement that curriculum in madrasa? That remains unclear, because madrasa curriculum is about religious knowledge and religion and learning of Quran as a rote learning of Quran, basically. So how would this national curriculum make sure that madrasas have adopted what a child will learn in terms of other objectives of education? And there is a lot in this national curriculum about creativity and critical thinking, children being able to do creative tasks, they will be able to make their own decisions. And so I can't see that madrasa they are rich places. I would say they are not short of money. They provide food to children, accommodation to children. They have a charitable status. They don't pay taxes. So as compared to private schools, I would say, but I still see that element of creativity and critical thinking, because the teachers are not trained for delivering that kind of curriculum or syllabus to them. So again, moving on to the last of this risk factor, private schools are more are passing in private school as compared to failing, which is not surprising, because private school, when people pay for their children, they want them to learn. And if they are not learning, then there's a responsibility on the school that why children are not learning. However, large number are still failing in this very simple test um, uh, when children should be learning at the age of 8. They are not achieving that level. Um, so these challenges, I have given, I've in the end of this PowerPoint slide, I have given some aspects, copy pasted it from the single national curriculum text, and you will see what are the ambitions. They are good ambitions. I'm not saying that they are bad, but our local challenges are very different, and it doesn't clearly say how will local challenge be overcome by that single national curriculum. And the biggest challenge, children in that local atmosphere and local geography not going to school. How would this national curriculum bring them in the school? If that was the promise of the government, how would they ensure that? And the knowing, again, going back to knowing who are not in school, that needs to be recorded at official level, at official administrative level, at the government level. We need to know in a proper a register of children how old they are, what family they come from, and what do they have any physical health or learning difficulties. This is just basic. And coming to the age of 3, how many are going and how many are not going? So if they are not going because there is no law, so it doesn't have any implications on parents. So parents shouldn't be fearful of not reporting the birth of a child. No, because this is not a law. If they will not send their child to school, it means it's their choice. But at least we need to know who are those parents, what kind of communities are those where girls are not sent or dropped out from school, and what challenges are there. So for example, recently somebody posted on Twitter that girls drop out from school because the geographical distance between school and the house is full of dangers. And what kind of dangers? There was a danger that, for example, there are stray dogs, and dogs, and this is a challenge. If there are stray dogs in the street, and if there are girls who are being harassed uh, during their journey to school, how come a national curriculum will overcome that? I don't understand that. That's the challenge that needs money, that needs investment, and that needs very meticulously recorded data. Producing data should not be it is an expensive inquiry, but having technology now, it's very easy to record children going to school, their experience of going to school, just basic answer, yes, no, or at the most, do you like going to school, rate on the scale of 0 to 10. Or do you think journey is okay when you go from, this is basic census process. And why can't our government do that with school? Why birth registration is not a proper system? Why children are not recorded when they are born, or if they die? Why that information is only estimated information? Why that data doesn't exist? As soon as that data comes in, we will change our objectives of school education. School would look very different. We might make better decisions. We might make better provisions for children to come into school. At the moment, we don't know what the issue is. So putting all of these 15 risk factors in a simple regression model, because this is a lot in the new curriculum, which basically is trying to enforce private schools to adopt a single national curriculum policy and do the things as the government schools are doing. So that is taking a lot of liberty from the private school, and liberty in a sense, for example, medium of instruction. Private schools might be asked to just teach English as a subject, and they might have to adopt that and teach science, geography, and other maths as in Urdu, and that could be a problem. And possibly that's something that people will resist, parents will resist, because no knowledge of these subjects in English, other than English as a subject, that has a huge impact on their their admissions and on their university admission and going abroad or having an employment which is highly reliant on English speaking skills, English writing skills. Parents want their children in that group, on that socioeconomic group, middle class, want their children to learn science as in English, because a lot of what material they bring in homes is written in English. And the same thing, why government schools can't adopt English as a subject. It's not that it's not children can't. Yes, you can do English as a subject, but train teachers to teach the other subjects, at least if it's in Urdu, yes, but teach children or have the option for children to select, the parents to select the language of being taught for the STEM subjects, let's say. So we did some this is analysis of the school type matter, means having going to private school is thought, or very large majority of NGOs would say that sending child to a private school is it determines their academic performance. And if no matter what their socioeconomic status is, if they are from a poor family but they are going to a private low cost private local school, there is more likely that child will learn more as compared to the same child with the same characteristics in a government school. So there was this misconception, I would say, where government schools are thought not good and having a bad impact on children's learning. It has changed, means that perception of government school is changing drastically. The government is trying to do, but that's basically for the children who are in school. It's not for a large majority, which they say 22 million or 23, God knows how they say that. It's not going to bring them. And anyways, this is basically a regression analysis of only 8-year-old children, and it is like 89,460. And the basic says that 53% have passed, those who are enrolled, and 47 have failed, who were enrolled, but they were 47%, they were not able to complete the test. So, and 96%, obviously, it will make children not enrolled will fail large majority. So this is a situation where the regression and analysis can be done. It is perfect because it's 52% split between pass and fail. So in a data, there is a 52% of chance that a child will pass or fail. So it's half. It's like a gambling situation. So we add information in the model and say child comes from poor family, child comes from rich family, child comes which has electricity, no electricity, or children who are living in concrete house, children living in that information we put stepwise, and that correctness of our prediction changes. So if it changes, then it means yes, this is a controlling factor. So when we put in a lot of these variables, so you will see these green are mostly about living conditions, and the yellow ones are our research question, whether going to school type matters or not. So that's basically is here. We in step one, all green were put in, and in step two, school type, whether the child goes to government, madrasa, non-formal, or a school type is not given. So it hasn't changed. So once controlling for all the green factors here, the socioeconomic status, the poverty that determines the poverty condition of a child, that that's 64. It moves from 52 to 64%, means we will be 64% likely to be correct in our prediction that a child will pass or fail. But adding private school, madrasa doesn't, because we have already controlled the main issues here. So poverty, the living status is the main predictor. They are the main predictors of whether a child will pass or fail. So we need more information on that. We need a lot of information in it. If you go and the green enrolled in school or not in, that's the biggest thing that explains whether a child will pass or fail. That's the biggest. This has made a biggest difference in the prediction model. So whatever school they go in doesn't matter in this information. Um, they have to go to school, whether they go to government, whether they go to madrasa, just go to school, and something children will learn in that process. We don't want children to learn different things or having a different school experience, such as private school experience might be different from going to madrasa experience. That's a different debate, but in terms of academic output, it doesn't clearly distinguish. But yes, school experiences should be um, good for all kinds of school. Going to school should be a healthy experience. It should be children would want to go there. Children should love going to school rather than being annoying and considering that they have been abused in school or going to school. No, we want all school types, whether madrasa, whether government or private. We want school experience to be a memorable experience for children where they learn. I have done a little bit of analysis on poverty and segregation. This is another challenge that our overall segregation patterns are quite different. I mean, segregation means clustering. So children are clustered in different type of schools or locations, or especially the type of school, I would say. So where they are this one shows that because of poverty, there is higher segregation, and in terms of performance, there is lower segregation. So lower segregation means whether children are kind of less segregated or less segregated when it comes to academic performance. Okay, but in terms of poverty, they are quite clustered in schools. So maybe it's a private school, but it will have private schools will have more, possibly more clusters in terms of rich and in terms of poor. And you can see that's very true of our country, that some private schools are all where posh rich people would send their children, and then we will have in the private sector children coming from very low socioeconomic. So private sector is highly segregated, and as compared to the government, it is segregated, but it's not as the private sector. Saying challenges, and single national curriculum thinks that, or the intention is to balance out that clustering or balance out these differences. And here is the example I've taken it: what's to educate Pakistanis to be. So again, I'm going to what is the ideology behind single national curriculum. So we are not we don't want we are not enforcing human values here. We are enforcing Pakistan, what an ideal Pakistani is. So we forget uh, that there are huge differences. There is a lot of lack of cohesion in understanding who should be a Pakistani or what a Pakistani should have. So that's something, and it sometimes clashes with our ethnic identities. It's something that it clashes with our language needs, or the way we want the Pakistani and Urdu is a national language. So other languages do not get that level of status. However, in many developed countries, if they have one language as a national language, I think the large majority have another. So they make that as a national language. So they give that status to the national language. So children can learn both. They should be having an opportunity to learn both of those languages. If there is like Welsh is a language in Wales, so that's their national language. So England will not enforce English on their choice of language, because there is their Welsh is their language, and they want some parents who choose a Welsh medium school where English is taught and Welsh is equally spoken by teachers, and have the material in Welsh language. That's common. This is common in in most countries. I don't know why just Urdu is enforced, I think, or why just Urdu as a national language becomes, um, it is a contention in other provinces. So that's again, how can social single national curriculum address that? So the seekers of truth and knowledge who can apply both for the progress of society. Again, I'm not sure how this is a very broad objective. Truth and knowledge comes from critical thinking, and are we ready? Are we ready to question some of the basic issues that our society has? Are we ready to address the differences that are at the level where we don't want to face them? Truth and knowledge for each household could be different. It could be Shia having truth and knowledge, Sunni having truth and knowledge. What does where this truth and knowledge will go? This will cause a clash. And how can a government um, tell us that this is truth and this is knowledge? Use only that. No, because we come from different household, we come from different value system. That truth and knowledge might not be so. I think that education system should not try to implement what truth and knowledge is. It should try to implement uh, other things, such as be creative and be ready to question some of the basic flaws in our thinking and our ideological principles. In private school, there is a little bit of relaxation, and but I don't see that how would a government will control that. So the capability of effectively participating in the highly competitive global knowledge base, how can that happen? At something, these are very beautiful objectives, but there is less investment in education to meet these objectives, I would say. So another thing that they say: disciplined, productive, moderate, and enlightened. That's for early years only, not for primary and secondary. So I'm a little bit unaware, or how can they do it, capable of effectively participating in the competitive, where girls and boys are segregated, separated in the classroom. How can we compete a global world where gender differences are being removed? Gender is not the problem in many countries, but in our society, it's highly segregated. We don't let girls and boys mix together after primary schooling. So how can we compete a global market where women are competing? And how would our men see that competition? I think this is something we need to look at, and we need to open our boundaries. I'm not saying adopt Western style, but there are some proven facts about mixing children, having a mixed education system, or having a relaxed education system where children learn from each other. There are no barriers, there are no walls, but there are just more communication and more bridges to understand how girls and boys think, how they should communicate, what language they should use while they are communicating. I think this is another thing. Last, I would say it's again very broad thing. How they will develop thing, how they will, what will be the expected outcomes, and I will just randomly pick up that develop and F. Let's say develop and understand how to dress up. Okay, how to dress up. What do you mean by how to dress up as a girl, as a boy? How to dress up mean just putting on shalwar kameez, knowing about eating habits, proper posture. Children come from disabilities, can't have a proper posture, I think. Some have a severe physical challenges. I don't understand what does that proper posture. It's a very blanket way of thinking. What a proper posture would I would be as a teacher having a class with children with physical disability. I will not be able to meet that outcome, or my children will not be able to meet. Talking and sitting, again, talking and sitting. If it would have been better if they had said children know when they are children would be able to learn how to talk or when to talk. and what eating habits or what knowledge of food is important, how what a healthy food is. By the end of it, children will be able to. So these things, I think, it's too prescriptive, and some of the things are assuming that we all are the same, all children come from the same background, same abilities, and school will be able to address. This is an assumption, school will be able to address those differences. Well, I think that's a big asking from school, which are under resourced, teachers not properly trained. Teachers don't even know that a child having a problem, posture problem, sitting properly on the chair. Some teachers cannot identify this child has a physical need or a disability. So without that training, how can we do the training? And there is another one, respond to significant experiences, showing a range of feelings. Yes, that's important. And but some children have difficulties such as autism. It's where they cannot recognize feeling. How will you identify that? Yes, a large majority should be able to understand what the happiness is, but some children really struggle. And what kind of curriculum school can bring for that children is unclear. Appropriate to situation, for example, birthday celebration and dua for deceased family members of. So these are cultural ways, and we want all children to behave appropriately in the cultural settings. But some children can't do that, and I can't see those children are visible in this single national curriculum. So another important is ask open-ended questions. The first examples and ideas of him. Ask open-ended question. Yes, but my question is, are we ready to answer some very critical questions that children can ask in the classroom? They can ask something that is against our ideological belief. Children ask all kind of. Are they open? And it's not just becoming a pilot in or I want to be teacher. No, children can ask very critical questions, not about themselves, about their neighbors, about the child sitting next to them. They can. Are we ready to accept those differences? I think we are not ready, and we need to address those first before having a single national curriculum. So I will stop here and would like to engage with you.
Oh, yes, Nadia, for your highly encourage participants if you have any questions. So please put your questions in the chat box.
If somebody wants to talk, means I would like to talk as well.
Yeah, if you would like to talk to Dr. Nadia, you can do it now. Otherwise, I have some questions from you, Dr. Nadia.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Well, a single national curriculum indicating that without a single curriculum, we cannot remain one nation. And there are countless examples of the countries having diverse curriculum. So even one that vary from school to school and yet a strong sense of common nationhood. So why single national curriculum is so necessary at this time when there is a huge learning crisis due to the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes,
So
that COVID-19 has made all of us, and that's for the first time we would say we are common, whether we are Sindhi or we are Balochi or we are Punjabi. Everybody had got COVID-19. But I can't see that this single national curriculum is the demand, or is it is something that will make us one nation, because all provinces have their own identity and they take pride in it. We mean ask Balochi how proud they are, ask Pashtun how proud, and that needs to be recognized in the national curriculum. That needs to be recognized without any fear that okay, this is something that is against, but somehow this blanket approach will challenge that, and we have been ignoring those differences. So we are a nation, but within that nation, there are many groups. And education should forget the ideology of this, but people want to be recognized, and their identity needs to be recognized. At the current crisis, I would say lots of things have changed, and economically we are not doing very well. So first thing is we need to boost education, make education meaningful, and forget these differences. Whether we are a nation, we should be more focused on human beings, teach values of a human, of a society where people respect differences, people respect um, critical differences, people respect religious differences. I think that's what national curriculum should say, or don't use it in national curriculum. Say it's a curriculum. It's a curriculum for everybody, and I think it's not difficult. The more we are becoming focused on one nation, the more mistakes we make, and the more we offend people, the more we say, okay, we are Pakistanis, or we are Urdu speaking, or we are Punjabi. The more we will try to do that, it will offend more people. So I think that sense of nation shouldn't be taught. Sense of human being. A Pakistani is a good human being, and what they should do, that I think is much more interesting and easier to do.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Dr. Afaf, if you have any question, you can directly ask to Dr. Nadia, or you can just write here in the chat box.
Okay, thank you very much. It's great listening to Dr. Nadia and Dr. Sadia. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. I was writing, but I think I can ask now. You talked about and answered a question regarding different and diverse languages and provincial setups of education. There is other one more factor, like we have multi-sector education system in our country. Like we have separate departments for general education, for special education, or formal or non-formal education, or vocational education. Means we are divided in many sectors. And even in our general education system, we have a private setup, and we have a high you can say level of private sector, and then street schools. So how you could see or foresee the implementation of single national curriculum, while they are even saying that it will be implemented for all sectors, but I could not see the situation here that all sectors are going to handle it. Since another question raised to my mind, as I am also a member of single national curriculum committee at federal level for accommodating children with special needs in that single national curriculum. So when we are thinking and taking all those diversified needs children in that single national curriculum, similarly we have a separate systems for them, separate education system for them. So how we can achieve all those objectives written in that single national curriculum on which you have just talked
Hmm.
about and criticized on that. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
I think these are very good points about diversity, and the diversity that we have, because historically we didn't have a proper education system. We just the systems have evolved because state did not fund education properly. So what happened over the period of time, that the private sector became more and more stronger. You know, in the era of Bhutto, he nationalized all the schools. So all private schools were thought that, okay, that was one of the example of single national curriculum. All private schools have to obey the state school, and the salary of teachers will be paid by the government. That was a mega project which failed because our sector, if there is no private sector in our country, I would say 50%, 35, it's 35 to 40% children will stop going to school, coming from middle class families and coming from poorer families. So that basically had stopped That was a failed policy in his time period or in that political era. And then private school became more powerful, and the words use mushrooming of because middle class families, income earning families, urban families like yourself, myself, we want our children to be educated the best. We want to spend our hard earned income on our children's school experiences. We don't want children to be in a school where it is difficult to go, where teachers are not trained, where is no space, there are no toilets, there is school system doesn't have a support there. So private system exists and non-formal exists, but again, so I'm not that they are historically evolved because the government sector was weak since earlier on. In other countries, what I see that their government system or the government schools are very strong, with a lot of money, lot of resources, and accountability, a lot of accountability they do, and a lot of freedom as well. So teachers can choose what kind of classroom they will have for disability. If and inclusive, they promoted inclusive education, that if children have disability come to our school, we will provide you the provisions. If a child is on a wheelchair, child has hair, our school will do something for the child. That's inclusive we can't do that for many reasons. Number one, these children will not come in our system because of stigma, trauma, lack of provision. Schools are not built for them, so they are excluded anyways, naturally excluded. Schools are not ready. But having a single national curriculum, I don't see that they will come to school. Or even children who are of normal um, or an average health or average capability as in thinking, they are not going to school. Yes, because their parents have. I don't see having a single national curriculum will make any change in the system. It is the least expensive thing governments can do. Just make changes. Oh, it's English medium. Next government will come. Oh, it's Urdu medium. The other guy, okay, English is. So they keep doing it. This doesn't need any investment. This is just paperwork. This is just political game. What you want to do? Okay, make a system where children are recorded. Each children who is born in each day, their information is recorded and put in front of public that information. Who are born, who are of the age to go to. This doesn't need a lot of information. The only problem it will have is it will make people naked in the sense that, okay, um, this is a community, conservative community, and 100 children were born in that community. And we registered them, and 100 out of 100, only 2 have gone to school. So when that will come on the surface, then we can make better decision. Okay, what can we do in that community? What can we go, and what kind of information that they need? Is it better schools they need? Uh, so I think if a government can create a record system, birth registration system, linked with school system and information, then we can bridge certain gaps. I don't see national curriculum can make any difference.
Okay, Dr. Nadia, I have next question from Ms. Farzana Yusuf. The question is about where is the place for children out of school since they are out of school, and what is the welcoming gesture in the single national curriculum to attract their attention to join the formal schooling system?
I think the intention is to make education relevant. I think so. Relevant to children who drop out because they find schooling not attractive or schooling is boring. We know that the things we teach in our school are more and more becoming less attractive, with tablets in their hands, with mobile in their hands, internet technology. There is much more exciting stuff out there rather than in school. And that, I think they wanted to make schooling relevant in that, so that will address the dropout. that children who don't go to school because their parents, oh, कुछ सीख नहीं रहा वहाँ पे स्कूल में कुछ पढ़ाते नहीं है. Possibly, but that's not the fault of whatever curriculum they have now. It's the fault that teachers are not trained to make learning an enjoyable experience. The teachers are not accountable for why the child from your class dropped out. So they were dropped out. What did you do? And how much resource they give to teachers for addressing that dropout. So if a child, a girl has stopped coming to school, do teachers have money to see, or do teachers have some kind of a telephone service that they can? Nothing like that. So they can question. They cannot question teachers unless they provide provision to the school to address that challenge.
Okay. So the next question, there is less budget, nearly 2% or less than 3 GDP. So what that spends on education and how this single national curriculum will be implemented with more emphasis on ICT techniques and the computer-based instruction to meet the international standards and to enable these students to compete with the TIMSS testing standards.
That's an interesting question. So with that budget that we have is very little, and our demand is more. And having high ambitions that having all technology equipped classroom is a bit where there is no electricity in school. How can we have technology in school where there is no electricity? So it's the fault of the education budget, or it's the fault of local budget. That number one, it needs to be addressed at that level. Who will pay for electricity in the schools? So is the local government, or is the school has to pay their bills? And that needs to be addressed. I think without that infrastructure, having technology based school system, especially state school system is a big dream. It's a good dream. All state schools should be fully equipped with technology and free internet for the teachers and for the children, and maybe possibly for parents who want to learn what school is like. They haven't got a chance to go to school. Some mothers would like to join, and the children with their children in America, they have done these experiments that how you can educate mothers by bringing them in the school environment. So expensive with low budget, it's not, and with accountability, raising budget without accountability will only increase corruption. So we need the monitoring of the budget, accountability of schools, a positive environment of accountability, not demeaning or harsh measures where schools can't do or show performance. I think we need a kinder approach towards schools while we are asking them to be accountable about the funding they give or the funding they're utilizing, and more teachers and more training available. And that's, I think, with 3%, it has gone down. I think it was 4 and it's gone 3. It's always 4, 3, 2. But within that, I don't see that that's enough. We need more investment. I think we need investment in education more than we need in security of our country, because education is more important at the moment. COVID-19 has made it more important, and I think without that, whatever our forces are doing on the borders, it's irrelevant. We need to create citizens who can think and make decision independently, and be able to communicate across the sectors, across the differences.
Okay, Dr. Nadia, I have last question from you. With more emphasis on religious education that exists in the single national curriculum, so how the students can be trained to compete with the TIMSS testing?
Yeah, the TIMSS and Pearls are very reading maths and reading tests, and I can't understand that reading and literacy, reading and maths test. Uh, would or having the knowledge or learning of religion will help them to pass TIMS or
Yeah.
Pearl. So that's something they have just put in there, I think, to please certain groups in our society. Tims and Pearls are serious test, and if that's what they want, very good Tims, Pearls, PISA for secondary. I would want, so Tims and Pearls are for primary, PISA is for secondary. Go for PISA, because in India they are doing PISA in Chandigarh, state of Chandigarh now, and this will tell us a lot where India stands in terms of education. And I would say that they are doing better. They have invested more in it. They have developed a national they have digitized their pupil level information, student level information, parents information. So they have that data. I would say invest in the development of data first, and then make a curriculum, then think of dreams. So first see what you have, and then see how much you can invest. And having a religious education, we need to set our priorities right at this time. What we want our education for. Do we want kinder human beings in the world, or we want people who can blow themselves in bomb attacks based on their ideological belief? So we need to set those right in the education, and that's the education. It's nothing else. It's the education system that needs to be set right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nadia, for joining us and for giving us wonderful talk. And could you please a little bit describe your next session that is based on teacher mobility? So it will create the interest for the participants.
So the next year, so I have done research with Sadia. Sadia and I have created a project, and it's a survey study, and we are basically interested in context of rationalization policy in Pakistan, in Punjab, sorry. So how teachers are moved across schools, and in state sector, in government sector, I would say, what are the problem, why teachers change school basically, and what kind of people change in government schools and in private school. Are there big differences in having these two streams, or the kind of people who are teaching in these systems, are they different from each other? And that's the question we have tried to answer. And I think it's one of the largest survey done in Pakistan on. I think teacher mobility hasn't been a has
No.
been it has been not talked about or researched. So why it is important? Because mobility, because trained teachers move, and if their trained teachers are clustered in only urban settings, then people in urban settings will have a more advantage of them as compared to rural, because trained teachers might that's a natural phenomena that people move when they have skills, they have knowledge, they tend to move towards better society, towards better condition, life opportunities. So this is a trend we see in teachers across the world. In America, they have done lots of studies that why teachers are moving from school system which are highly segregated in terms of black African majority. So because it's a rough area, children coming from poorer household, it's challenging to teach in those atmosphere. So they tend to move to the much more middle class groups, and middle class is largely white population. So that's like a racial segregation. That's a challenge in their country. In our country, it's more like urban rural challenge. It's not ethnic based challenge, or it's not we don't have that level of intensity as in America. Middle class groups are not like in school, which has a challenging atmosphere. So we did that study, and we will talk about it. We have done a little bit of analysis. Sadia will tell you what rationalization policy is, and lot of discussion about it on Twitter, and teachers demanding things from the minister. They were successful, they were not successful, were they happy? But there are challenges, and why people change jobs, and what kind of people. Is there any benefit in changing job? There are some very interesting findings, who stay in the school and those who move. So please join us.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Nadia, once again for your talk and for describing your next session. And thank you so much, participants. And please join us in our next session. That's really important for the PhD scholars as well. That will set the direction for your future research work. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everybody. See you next week.